The old monk sealed my 7 apertures with copper coins. He then bound my limbs with red silk thread. All this, just to send me back 10 years into the past. To bring my husband back to life. At that very moment, the copper coins on my apertures suddenly turned blood red. The old monk spoke to me. Within 12 hours of my rebirth, I must resolve his 3 deepest regrets. Once completed, I must leave immediately. From then on, we would go our separate ways. He would no longer die at the age of 30 because of me. Our paths in life would never cross again. But rebirth always comes with a price. He asked if I had truly made up my mind. As long as Jiang Wangzhou lives, I am not afraid of any price. With those words, I leapt from the star-picking tower. When I opened my eyes again, I was back 10 years in the past. Song Jishue, you really are something. To actually get my parents to force me into marrying you using their own lives. Do you really think marrying me will bring you happiness? The young man's low, cold voice rang in my ears. I opened my eyes in a daze, staring blankly at Jiang Wangzhou. He stood before me, dressed in vibrant red robes. His eyes were wild and untamed. His temperament and the way he spoke were so different from the Jiang Wangzhou 10 years later. This was Jiang Wangzhou at 18. I truly had returned to 10 years ago. Suppressing the bitterness in my heart, I stared at him greedily. You don't want to marry me. Because the one you truly want to marry is Gu Wanhe, right? Jiang Wangzhou sneered. So what if it is? Can you actually fulfill my wish? I can. My parents died on the battlefield, protecting the nation without fear. The emperor granted me a blank imperial decree for marriage. There was no name written on it. I could marry whoever I chose. By the same token, I could also request an imperial marriage decree for anyone else. He let out a cold, mocking laugh. You used the decree to pressure my parents, and forced me to marry you. Our marriage is already set in stone. And now you say you'll fulfill my wish? How? Song Jishue. I don't have time to play hard to get with you. Send that decree to the palace yourself. I'll wait for you to finish your piece. He turned around and leaned against the palace wall, seeing the deep disgust in his eyes. My heart felt like it was being pricked by sharp needles. Across 2 lifetimes, I have loved Jiang Wangzhou for many years. He had risked his life to save me twice. I mistakenly thought he loved me in secret too. So, I happily asked the emperor for the decree to marry him. It wasn't until after his white moonlight died that I realized his heart belonged to someone else. My 10 years of love were 10 years of torture for him. In my previous life, I performed countless good deeds, hoping to trade my life for his, finally earning this chance for his rebirth. Before my rebirth, the high monk warned me. Within 12 hours of arriving, I must resolve his 3 regrets. Therefore, the first thing I did after rebirth was seek an audience with the emperor. I requested a marriage decree for Jiang Wangzhou and Gu Wanhe. I knew Jiang Wangzhou's 3 regrets. They were written in his personal diary. Regretting his marriage to Song Jishue. Regretting that he didn't resist his parents' arrangements. Regretting that he failed to save Gu Wanhe. Now, his first regret is finally resolved. I brought the decree out of the palace and handed it to him. He looked at me, with a look that said, "You've finally succeeded in forcing me." He reached out to open the decree, but I pressed my hand down on his. I smiled gently. Read it tomorrow. There will be a surprise. Jiang Wangzhou gave me a bored look. Today or tomorrow, it's still about marrying you. Why are you being so strange today? Are you so happy you're going crazy? I am indeed happy, because I've finally seen you alive again. I smiled. I think, you are the best person in the world. Whoever marries you will be very happy. He gave a cold snort. He turned his head and walked away. If I didn't know he disliked me, I would have thought he was shy. On the carriage ride back to the manor, we passed the bustling flower street. I pulled back the curtain, hearing many women say the matchmaker star would pass tonight. From the star-picking tower, one could see a once-in-a-century meteor shower. Legend says that couples who watch it together will love and stay together for 3 lifetimes. I suddenly remembered my past life. I had heard these same words back then, and joyfully begged Jiang Wangzhou to take me to the tower. At that time, his cold face was filled with mockery. Haunting me for 1 lifetime isn't enough? You want to haunt me for 3? What meteor legends? Just a deceptive and ridiculous trick. It's enough for you to be fooled alone. Don't drag me into it. That icy gaze. Even though it was a distant memory from a past life, it still made me shiver with cold. I silently lowered the curtain. But this time, Jiang Wangzhou spoke indifferently. Jishue, I can accompany you to the star-picking tower tonight. After our marriage, I won't have time to visit your parents' graves with you. Consider this an apology. I looked up at him in surprise. It was unexpected, yet also exactly as I expected. Jiang Wangzhou had always been sharp-tongued, but his heart was softer than anyone's. Even though he didn't love me, he had still risked his life to save me 3 times. The first time, we were robbed by bandits. He took a blade to his right hand to protect me. Since then, those hands that could hit any mark could never draw a bow again. The second time, I was infected with a plague. Teetering between life and death, he climbed a high cliff to find a snow lotus to save me, nearly breaking his leg. The third time, the palace fire. He died right in front of me to save my life. Wangzhou was perfect in every way, except for the fact that he didn't love me. I knew that after today, Jiang Wangzhou and I would have no fate left together. Even if we climbed the star-picking tower and saw the centuries meteor shower, we would not stay together forever like the legend says. But I still suppressed the moist heat in my eyes and smiled as brightly as I did in my past life. Okay, let's go see the meteors together. Midway, someone stopped the carriage. It was Gu Wanha's maid, saying her lady had a headache and wanted to see Jiang Wangzhou. As soon as he heard, his brow furrowed in concern. He immediately got off the carriage. Wanha is unwell. I must go. You go back to the manor first. I'll see you at the tower tonight. I nodded. All right. He seemed a bit surprised. In the past, didn't you hate it most when I went to see her? Why the change of heart? I opened my mouth to speak, but he sneered again. I see. Since we're about to be married, she's no longer a threat to you. He rode away on his horse, failing to see the disappointment and bitter smile in my eyes. Actually, I never really stopped his preference for Gu Wanha, except for that one time, when I heard the Marquis say that Gu Wanha was involved with certain officials. After further investigation, she was indeed not innocent. That was why I desperately tried to prevent Jiang Wangzhou from having too much to do with her, but he knew nothing of this, and lived in agony for 10 years after her death. If I had to choose, I'd rather see him be with Gu Wanha, than have him suffer through torture, and ultimately die for me. I went to the magistrate first to get my travel papers, then returned to the Marquis' manor. The madam had personally cooked a table full of dishes, all of which were my favorites. Habitually, I took off my white fox fur cloak and draped it over the madam. It's cold, madam, please take care of your health. The madam looked at me with a beaming smile. Ji Shue is always so thoughtful. Quick, let me see your marriage decree with Wangzhou. I've waited so long. Finally, for the day you can call me mother. The Marquis, seeing no one behind me, blew his mustache in anger. That boy didn't come back with you again? The decree is already here. Why hasn't he contacted you? I'll give him a good scolding when he returns. The genuine concern of the Marquis and Madame filled my heart with bitterness. After my parents died in battle, I was just a lonely orphan. The Marquis and Madame raised me as their own. They gave me love and everything else. I have always been obedient, but this time I must defy them. I looked at them and spoke solemnly. Lord Marquis, Madame, I will not be marrying the young lord. Tomorrow, I will leave for the south. I won't be able to serve you anymore. So please, take good care of yourselves. The Madame was stunned, instantly becoming anxious. Your parents died for the country. You grew up right in front of us. The Marquis' manor is your home. Where would you even go? Is it Wangzhou? Did he bully you for that woman named Gu? Is that why you won't marry him? You mustn't think like that. He does have you in his heart. Otherwise, he wouldn't have risked his life to save you twice. Every year on your birthday, he prepares long in advance, searching for all kinds of treasures for you. I know you love Wangzhou too. You learn to cook for him, and you massage his hands every day to soothe his pain. If you two marry, you will surely be happy. Besides, that Gu woman is a bad person. We cannot let her get her way. Please, don't leave out of anger. In the past life, they tried to persuade me just like this. In the end, I lost a husband and they lost a son. Everyone lived a life of regret. I gently wiped the tears from the madam's eyes and spoke softly. Madam, forced fruit is never sweet. Brother Wangzhou's heart is not with me. I really shouldn't have forced him to marry me. I had a dream last night. I dreamt that he and I got married, but he refused to see me. He worked himself to exhaustion every day, covering himself in injuries. The porridge I made for him, he wouldn't drink. When he was sick, he wouldn't let me care for him. He said the pain I brought him was greater than the happiness. He even, to save me, died at 30. At this point, my heart ached so much I could hardly breathe. The madam was stunned. But, that was just a dream. Ji Shue, Wangzhou. He wouldn't. I sniffed and forced a smile. Lord Marquis, Madam, consider it a warning. I think, it's fine if he doesn't marry me. We don't have to be husband and wife, but I want him to live a long life. And though he is of noble status, there are too many things beyond his control. But I believe, at least his marriage should be his own choice. I knelt down and kowtowed 3 times. I already have the travel papers. I beg the Marquis and Madam to let me go. I will never forget your kindness in raising me. Ji Shue will remember it forever. I will find a way to repay you. The Marquis sighed and helped me up. The Madam, wiping her tears, pulled out a stack of banknotes and stuffed them into my hand. Since you've made up your mind, I will let you go. But remember, no matter what happens, the Yongning Marquis Manor will always be your home. My tears finally fell. I hugged the Madam. Thank you, Madam. As long as I sever my fate with Jiang Wangzhou, the tragedy of the past life will not repeat. He will live a long life. The old Marquis and Madam will not be heartbroken, nor will they hate me to the bone. In this life, everyone will have a happy ending. The second regret in his diary should be considered resolved now. I must finish his 3 regrets within 12 hours. There is only one last regret left. Will it go smoothly? In the evening, I went to the star-picking terrace. It was crowded with couples, all seeking a fate of eternal togetherness. Song Ji Shue. A familiar voice suddenly reached my ears. I turned around joyfully, only to see Jiang Wangzhou's furious face. He grabbed my wrist tightly. His eyes were bloodshot with rage. You know I hate people who bully others with their status. Just because I didn't accompany you home. You provoked my parents into publicly humiliating Wanha? Now she's taken poison to end her life in despair. Are you satisfied now? My wrist felt as if it were about to snap. The pain made my face turn pale. In the past life, because I married Jiang Wangzhou, Wanha became despondent and committed suicide a month later in the manor. Jiang Wangzhou couldn't find a matching poison antidote for her. He had to watch her die, and grew to loathe himself and hate me utterly. He hated me until the moment he died. But in this life, I haven't even married him. How could Gu Wanha still be trying to commit suicide? I was just wondering how I would fulfill his third wish. It seems the opportunity has delivered itself. I looked at him. So, are you here to take my blood for the antidote? Jiang Wangzhou was stunned. He didn't seem to expect me to say that. He spoke even more coldly. Do you think I won't? You caused Wanha's humiliation and suicide. You should atone for your sins. He dragged me to Gu Wanha's residence. Wanha lay on the bed, her breath faint. The physician took out a dagger and made a cut on my arm. A sharp, stinging pain shot up my arm. I let out a muffled groan. The physician said with delight, there's a reaction. The lady's blood is indeed a match. But to save the patient, we need the blood from her heart. I don't know if the lady's body can withstand it. No. Jiang Wangzhou's face changed. He frowned. Taking heart blood is equivalent to losing half of one's life. She won't survive it. Will other blood work? The physician looked troubled. Other blood won't be effective. If the young lord is unwilling, then you must be prepared for the worst. The girl giving the blood might not die, but the poisoned woman will surely perish. Jiang Wangzhou pursed his thin lips. His gaze fell on Gu Wanha. I saw the conflict in his heart. I looked at the physician and said, I am willing to save her. Go ahead. The physician looked at Jiang Wangzhou. But it will severely damage her vital energy. I smiled. It doesn't matter. I'll recover with some rest. Saving a life is more important. Jiang Wangzhou stared at me intently. Finally, he knit his brows and tore a piece of his white robe. He blindfolded me. I owe you one. I will definitely compensate you. After he left, the physician began to cut into my skin. With every inch the blade went in, the pain became more vivid. I suddenly thought of my past with Jiang Wangzhou. At 8, both my parents died. I was bullied by children from noble families. They said I had no parents, and no one to back me up. Jiang Wangzhou chased them away from me. He patted my head. Don't be afraid. I will protect you. He truly kept his word. Even until his last breath, he was always protecting me. I couldn't help but love him. But I know, from the moment of my rebirth, I must sever my ties with him at all costs. As the heart blood was drawn, warm blood also began to flow from the corner of my mouth. I collapsed on the ground in pain. Vaguely, I remembered the last words he said in the past life. Song Ji Shue, if only I had never met you in this life. How good would that be? Tears streamed down my face. I smiled weakly. Brother Wangzhou. In this life, I won't haunt you anymore. When I woke up, the sun was bright. I had been placed in a side room next door. My chest felt as if a piece of flesh had been brutally gouged out. A massive, twisting pain followed every faint breath, spreading from my heart to my entire body. There was no one around. I was completely drained of strength. Even moving a finger felt like torture. I struggled to turn my eyes toward the window. The sun was already setting. It was almost the hour of the monkey. The 12-hour limit was almost up. I should leave. Outside, 2 maids were sweeping the yard, their voices chattering. Last night was a once-in-a-century meteor shower. Did you all see it? I saw it. It was truly beautiful. I heard that if lovers watch it together, they can stay together for life, and grow old together. Listening to the unconcealed wonder in their voices, and their sense of satisfaction, a bitter curve appeared on my pale lips. I couldn't help but feel regretful in my heart. What a shame. Such a beautiful meteor shower. And across 2 lifetimes, I still missed it. With a creak, the door was pushed open. Jiang Wangzhou, carrying an exquisite mahogany tray, walked into the room. On it was a steaming bowl of food. It was Buddha jumps over the wall from the imperial kitchen. When I was young and greedy, this was my favorite. For a moment, I was in a daze. I didn't expect him to still remember. Jiang Wangzhou placed the tray on the small table by the bed. His gaze fell on my colorless face. He subconsciously tightened his brows. He gazed at me, his voice carrying a long-lost softness, and even a hint of barely perceptible tension. Does your heart still hurt? I've already had the physician waiting outside. Should I have him examine you again? Wanha is no longer in danger. It's all thanks to you. I endured the sharp pain in my chest, and gave a slight nod. He, seeing that I was so weak I couldn't even speak clearly. A flash of regret appeared in his eyes. He sat down by the bed, his body appearing a bit stiff. I spoke too harshly yesterday. Don't take it to heart. But Wanha is innocent. You shouldn't have involved her in what's between us. Don't go complaining to my parents in the future. Hearing those words, a wave of bitterness hit my heart. He still believed, even now, that I used schemes to harm the woman he loved. In the past life, my eyes would have turned red from the injustice. I would have desperately explained that I didn't do it. But now, none of that mattered anymore. I didn't argue. I just parted my dry lips and forced a smile. There won't be a next time. Never again. Jiang Wanzhou's hand, which was tucking in my quilt, suddenly froze. He felt that my obedience today was unnaturally strange. So strange it caused a trace of baseless panic in his heart. I failed to see the meteors with you last night. I broke my promise. Jiang Wanzhou avoided my eyes, his voice softening. After our marriage, I will certainly visit your parents' graves with you. I remember you used to always talk about how you loved the water scenery of Jiangnan. After the visit, I will ask my father for leave, and we will go to Jiangnan together. Consider it compensation for your suffering this time. I was stunned. I had begged him for so long to go to Jiangnan. He had always coldly refused, saying he was busy with duties. Now, he said it so easily. I just smiled and shook my head. There's no need. You don't need to feel you owe me for last night. I chose to save the young lady myself. I did it willingly. We are even now. Jiang Wanzhou froze for a moment, his dark eyes churning with emotion. He suppressed that inexplicable irritation in his heart and spoke in a deep voice. I've already arranged for the carriage to leave in 5 days. Once you've recovered over these few days, we will depart. I stared at Jiang Wanzhou, lost in thought. He picked up the bowl of food to feed me, but I noticed his right hand holding the white jade spoon was trembling violently. His right hand had once saved me, but the bandit's heavy blade had damaged the tendons. The physician had said that this hand would never be able to hold a bow again, and it would ache unbearably on rainy days, or when he was exhausted. Even just holding a bowl of soup right now, his knuckles are pale from the strain of his endurance, making it look so difficult. A sudden, intense bitterness welled up in my nose, and my tears fell without warning. I stared fixedly at his hand, my voice trembling with heartache. Back then, to save me, you became like this, destroying your pride as a master archer. Do you regret it? Jiang Wanzhou paused and set down the bowl. He used his left hand to tuck his right into his wide sleeve, looking at me with a calm expression. There's nothing to regret. I would have saved anyone else just the same. The knife wound at my heart, where blood had just been taken, felt as if it had been cruelly stepped on. My voice grew even softer. That time I caught the plague, and you climbed the steep cliff to pick snow lotuses, nearly breaking your legs. If it were anyone else, would you have done the same? He answered without a moment's hesitation, yes. So that's how it was. I really wasn't anything special after all. He was simply kind by nature and couldn't bear to see anyone die. Yet I had sentimentally mistaken it for favoritism. My eyes were filled with tears, but I forced out my most brilliant smile. Wanzhou Gij, thank you for saving me over and over again. I grew up without parents. In this vast capital, I longed for a home so much that I used any means possible to force you to marry me. My self-centeredness must have caused you a lot of trouble and put you through so much agony. Jiang Wanzhou's brow twitched suddenly. He looked at me in this state, as if I were delivering my last words, and his heart skipped a beat. Song Jishue, what nonsense are you talking about? But from this day forward, it won't be like this anymore. I stared at him intently, as if trying to engrave his features into my soul for lifetimes to come, or perhaps to strip them away completely. He wouldn't need to abandon his beloved again, or be forced into marriage with me. We wouldn't spend 10 years torturing each other, and he wouldn't die because of me in that fire at age 30. In this life, he will be fine. He will live a long life. I saw a flash of obvious panic in Jiang Wanzhou's eyes. He stood up abruptly, opening his mouth as if to say something, but was interrupted by a maid rushing in. Young lord, my lady has woken up. She is searching for you anxiously. She refuses to eat anything, and keeps crying. Please, go see her. On Jiang Wanzhou's handsome face, a trace of concern immediately appeared. He turned to look at me, giving a quick instruction. Wait for me to come back. Wanzhou Gij, I called out to him. On my face bloomed the brightest, most relieved smile of the last 10 years. I'm sorry. Also, I wish you a smooth life from now on. And a long, long life. Wanzhou froze in his tracks. The inexplicable sense of unease in his heart, instantly amplified to the extreme. He frowned deeply. Why are you saying these things out of the blue? I'm just going to see Wanha. I'll be back soon. Eat your food like a good girl. When I get back, I have something to tell you. After saying that, he ultimately turned away and strode out of the room. Listening to his receding footsteps, I slowly closed my eyes. The hour of the monkey was near. Enduring the sharp pain, I propped myself up and got out of bed. The physician happened to arrive to check my condition and change the dressing. He left me several doses of medicine to nourish my blood. I pressed a piece of gold into the physician's hand, thanking him. I will take the medicine properly. Thank you, doctor. Also, please pass a message to the young lord for me. I have left for Jiangnan. Please tell him to respect my choice and not to miss me. I didn't take anything from the Marquis' manor. Nor did I take any of the strange little trinkets Jiang Wangzhou had once given me. I changed into the most inconspicuous plain clothing and silently left through the side gate, leaving the cage that had trapped me for 2 lifetimes. Meanwhile, after Jiang Wangzhou finished comforting Gu Wanhe, he hurried back toward the room. But the room was already empty. The Buddha jumps over the wall on the table was completely cold, untouched by even a single bite. His heart suddenly felt hollow. Where is Miss Song? He shouted to find someone to ask. Her body hasn't recovered yet. Where did she go? Before anyone could answer, his personal guard rushed in from outside in a panic, his face as pale as paper. Young lord, this is bad. On the main road out of the city, vicious mountain bandits were robbing travelers. The commoners who were attacked survived their wounds. But Miss Song, who had just given her heart's blood, was already severely weak. She was struck in a vital spot by a bandit's blade. She lost too much blood and has died. A loud ringing filled his ears. His heartbeat seemed to stop at that moment. He clenched his palms tightly, forcing himself to snap back to reality. He shouted angrily, nonsense. It must be someone with the same name. The imperial marriage decree has already been issued. We aren't leaving for Jiangnan for another 5 days. She can't even get out of bed right now. How could she possibly leave the city at this time? At this moment, the physician who had just changed Song Jishua's dressing walked in trembling to report to the young lord. Miss Song left a message for you before she departed. She said she has already left for Jiangnan, thousands of miles away. She wishes for each to find their own happiness. She asks that you do not miss her. The physician's voice entered Jiang Wangzhou's ears like a thunderclap of terrifying power, instantly shattering all of his logic to pieces. Jiang Wangzhou, who never lost his composure, stumbled back 2 steps now, almost unable to stand. His back slammed heavily against the doorframe. So it turns out, when Song Jishua said, get what you desire, and live a long life, it was her final farewell to him. A faint red, like a river breaking its dam, instantly spread to his eyes. Jiang Wangzhou's thin lips trembled as he tried to suppress it. Impossible. It's absolutely impossible. I climbed cliffs several times, and went deep into fires, nearly losing my life to save Song Jishua. How could she just die so casually like this? The guard Jiwen fell to his knees, his voice pained. The informant said. The city gate guards indeed verified her travel permit. They saw with their own eyes Miss Song's carriage heading in that direction. And the soldiers found a female corpse below the cliff. The build and clothing are almost identical to Miss Song's. The government travel permit also bore that name. Young lord, there are too many coincidences. Jiang Wangzhou's face was as pale as paper. When he spoke, his tone was terrifyingly flat. But his slightly trembling body betrayed the immense fear he was currently feeling. Bring my fastest horse here at once. Ever since the tendons in his right hand were injured, he had never ridden a horse again. He claimed to others that he simply didn't like riding anymore. But it was actually because of his pride. He was afraid he could no longer ride as freely as he had before. He was afraid his hand didn't even have the strength to control the reins. But now, he vaulted onto the horse, ignoring even the piercing pain in his right hand. He only hated that he couldn't be faster. Even faster. Jiang Wangzhou rode at a mad gallop, even whipping the horse's flank until it bled. Arriving at the cliff's edge, he finally found where the soldiers had placed the bodies. The corpses were covered by crude white cloths. The surrounding villagers continued to lament, hating the bandits for their lack of humanity, and for harming so many people, especially a young, beautiful girl. Jiang Wangzhou was in so much pain he could barely breathe. He gripped the reins tightly, using almost all his strength just to keep from falling off the horse. Song Jishua was under his nose every day. She was such a well-behaved and gentle person. Why didn't he realize her determination in time? Why didn't he see the signs of death in her eyes? Jiang Wangzhou dismounted, his legs feeling as heavy as lead, as he walked toward that body step by step. Every step was incredibly heavy, as if the 18th level of hell was beneath his feet. Fine cold sweat broke out on his forehead, sliding down his pale cheeks. Beside that corpse was the bottomless abyss of the cliff. He thought wildly in his heart. If it really was Song Jishua under this white cloth, he would jump down without hesitation. He had saved her so many times before. This time, he would surely be able to bring her back from the underworld. He knelt before the body. That right hand, which trembled even when holding a pen, hovered over the white cloth for a long time. He actually didn't dare to lift it. After a long while, his hand shaking, he peeled back a corner of the white cloth bit by bit. Under the cloth was a mangled face. But it clearly belonged to a strange woman. Although she wore plain clothes and had a similar build, it definitely wasn't her. The string in Jiang Wangzhou's heart that had been pulled to the limit suddenly snapped loose. He fell back onto the gravel ground, laughing toward the sky as if he had gone mad. Ha ha ha, it's not her. It's not her. A false alarm, it turns out this is the most beautiful, most body-weakening feeling in the world. But as he laughed, his laughter gradually turned into sobs. His nose stung, and hot tears crashed down on the back of his hand unguarded. He actually cared about Song Jishua that much. 1,000 times more than he thought. 10,000 times more than he imagined. Before seeing the body, he didn't dare admit it. But when he thought he had truly lost her, that world-shattering despair finally allowed him to see his own heart clearly. Jiang Wangzhou scrambled back onto his horse, heading back to the Marquis's manor like a madman. He would go back and get the best physician, the most precious medicinal ingredients, and pick the most comfortable carriage padded with soft cushions. Song Jishua had just given her heart's blood. Her body was as weak as a sheet of paper. She certainly couldn't bear the fatigue of travel. He thought, once he had these things ready, he would go and pursue her himself. Even if he had to chase her to the ends of the earth, he had to bring his bride back. But just as he stepped into the main hall of the manor, he was surrounded by a group of fully armed guards. The old Marquis stood on the steps with a grim face. Seeing him enter, he walked up without a word, and with all his might, gave Jiang Wangzhou a resounding slap. The Marquis was furious, pointing at his nose and cursing. For an illegitimate, seductive woman outside, you actually went and took Nanan's heart's blood. She is so fragile. Usually, you couldn't even bear to say a harsh word to her. Now how could you be so heartless as to bully her? Do you have any idea how many officials that Guanha has seduced before? If you have any conscience left, take some cavalry immediately, and bring Nan back. Beg her on your knees to marry you. Jiang Wangzhou's head was knocked to the side by the blow, a trace of blood seeping from his lip. He had originally intended to go after Song Jishua, but being publicly coerced and insulted by his father now, the rebellion and grievance in his bones instantly surged up. His gaze cooled by several degrees. His throat felt blocked, but he gritted his teeth and retorted, if Song Jishua hadn't complained to you, and you hadn't gone to vent your anger on her behalf, causing Wanha to take poison from the shame, then why would she need heart's blood to be saved? You've constrained me in everything since I was young. I couldn't make a single mistake in my studies or martial arts. Why must you be so controlling even in who I love, and even in my marriage? I'm not allowed to make my own decisions. The Marquis was so angry he was trembling. The finger pointing at him faltered, and his expression suddenly darkened. The madam, who had been sitting in the armchair, crying silently, stood up now, looking at her son with eyes full of disappointment. She gave a bitter laugh. Wangzhou, touch your own conscience. Do you dare say you don't love Nan? If you didn't love her, would you have risked your life, jumping off cliffs over and over again, and rushing into fires to save her? You are just used to resisting us, and taking it out on her in the process. Jiang Wangzhou's lips parted, but he felt like something was stuck in his throat, unable to make a sound. He loved her. He loved her so much he would subconsciously risk his life for her. Yet he was too stubborn to admit it. It's just that his parents pushed so hard, and Song Jishua was forced into his life. He simply didn't want to follow their wishes even in love. He wanted to prove he could make his own choices. So he arrogantly ignored her. Ignored just how much he truly loved Song Jishua. The madam walked up to him step by step, continuing, Nan. She came to kowtow and bid us farewell yesterday. This kind and pitiful child. She didn't want any of the Marquis's gold or silver before she left. Her only wish was for us not to blame you. She wished you a long life, happy and prosperous every year. Jiang Wangzhou suddenly thought back to Song Jishua's lifeless smiling face yesterday, and her farewell words. His face turned rigid, as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. He dithered for a moment, before making a sound with difficulty, but if she really came to say goodbye, and had truly given up on me, why would she go to the emperor, and beg for an imperial marriage decree for us? The madam gave a long sigh, her voice full of deep regret and heartache. You pride yourself on being exceptionally brilliant. So why don't you take a good look for yourself at what was actually written on that decree? A boom went off in Jiang Wangzhou's head, leaving it blank. Like a madman, with trembling fingers, he pulled that roll of bright yellow imperial decree from his breast. When Song Jishua had given this to him, he hadn't even deigned to look at it. The next second, when he saw the contents of the decree clearly, it was as if his whole body had been struck by lightning. His standing form shook violently, his knees weakening until he almost fell to the ground. The handwriting on it was elegant. It was Song Jishua's own, which she had practiced for years. But, in the position for the bride, there was no Song Jishua's name. Stroke by stroke, with extreme solemnity, what she had written were the three characters, Guanha. It was a decree for the heir of the Yongning Marquis, Jiang Wangzhou, and Guanha to be joined in marriage. Jiang Wangzhou indeed remembered yesterday. When Song Jishua handed him the decree, she had smiled so bitterly. She had looked at him steadily, and said she would fulfill his wish to be with Guanha. He thought she was playing hard to get, but it turned out she was offering a trampled, blood-drenched heart to let go for the last time. The madam patted his stiff shoulder, and cruelly revealed the final truth. Wangzhou, Do you really think Guwanha took poison and attempted suicide? Because she was insulted? She was privately seducing a court official. And was caught in the act by his primary wife. That wife vowed to kill her. So she thought of every way to manufacture a chance encounter with you. To use you, this great tree, as her backer. That wife thought you were going to marry Nan Nan. And would no longer care whether Guwanha lived or died. To vent her anger, she sent someone to poison her with bone poison. From beginning to end, none of this had anything to do with Nan Nan. She didn't complain. Nor did she bully anyone. She watched you suffer for another woman. And only then was she willing to give her heart's blood. She died for that filthy woman. An unspeakable ache and regret. Like 10,000 man-eating ants. Gnawed and churned wildly in Jiang Wangzhou's heart. The court official's primary wife, along with the still very weak Guwanha, were soon brought up roughly by the Marquis's guards. The court official's primary wife, seeing Jiang Wangzhou, with red eyes and a menacing aura, and thinking of how he had taken his fiancé's heart's blood yesterday, to save Guwanha's life, was so scared she knelt on the ground and confessed without being asked, "Spare my life, young lord, it was all this woman's fault. This woman had eyes but couldn't see Mount Tai. I didn't know this Miss Gu was your favorite, which is why I forced her to take the poison. But it was really Miss Gu who seduced this woman's husband first, defrauding him of money. That is what led to this woman's dissatisfaction." Jiang Wangzhou's expression went blank for a moment. Something very solid shattered within his heart. He slowly turned his head, looking at Guwanha as if she were a corpse. He questioned her sharply. "Yesterday, before you fainted, what exactly did you say to me?" Yesterday, she was at her last gasp, crying with tear-filled eyes, leaning weakly in his arms and saying, "Young lord, your kindness to me, I will remember in my heart. It's just that the better you are to me, the more that Miss Song won't let me go. Because you didn't accompany her home. The Marquis and Madame came to trouble me. They humiliated me. I know my status is low. And I have already taken the poison. I have no more face to live in this world." The pathetic thing was that he, who always prided himself on being smart, simply because he wanted to rebel against his parents' control, had easily believed Guwanha's low-quality lies, and became the sharpest knife he used to stab Song Jishue. Jiang Wangzhou always maintained his composure, and rarely showed anger, but at this moment, his face completely darkened, and the murderous intent exploding from him was chilling. His gaze, cold as ice, pinned Guwanha down. "I should never should have believed the words of a poisonous woman like you. Song Jishua's clean and precious heart's blood is not worthy of saving your foul, rotten life." Guwanha was scared pale, repeatedly kowtowing and begging for mercy. young lord, let me explain. I only did it because I love you too much." "Shut up!" Jiang Wangzhou roared. "Guards, drag this malicious woman down. Drain the blood from her body. Then send her to the deepest dungeon for those on death row. Make her life a living hell." She was soon surrounded by a group of fierce guards, who pinned Guwanha down firmly. Guwanha cried and struggled for a while, finding she couldn't move at all, realizing the truth was fully exposed. And there was no room for turning back. She simply stopped pretending, and burst into a fit of crazed, cold laughter. "Ha ha ha, young lord, why are you pretending to be so devoted now? It's you felt constrained by the Marquis's manner everywhere, and wanted too much to break free from their control. You were desperate for a way. And that's why you so easily believed my words. It's you. From the bottom of your soul, you didn't trust the one you loved. You felt that she was in league with your father and mother, using everything to control you. You were even too cowardly to admit your love for her. You would rather hurt her than admit that you could no longer live without her." Guwanha looked at him as if looking at a pathetic creature, laughing until tears came out. "The one who slandered her with malicious words was you. The one who personally had her chest cut open to take her heart's blood was also you. You are the true culprit who drove her away. Don't you find yourself ridiculous?" Guwanha was gagged by the guards and dragged away, but that final, shrill laughter, and those words that pierced the soul, were like a rusty, blunt knife, stabbing ruthlessly into Jiang Wangzhou's heart, leaving it a mangled mess. The pain made it almost impossible for him to breathe. Yes, the one who severely wounded Song Jishue was him. The one who forcibly took Song Jishue's heart's blood was also him. He personally pushed the girl, whose eyes were once filled only with him, into a bottomless abyss. A massive sense of grief and self-loathing swept over him. Jiang Wangzhou suddenly spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. His tall frame could no longer support itself. He collapsed heavily onto the cold brick floor. On the other hand, after leaving the capital, I did not go to the picturesque region of Jiangnan. I wanted to see the place where my parents once wore their armor, and fought throughout their entire lives. Traveling through the wind and sleeping in the dew, after much rushing about, I finally reached the remote Lingnan. It was not as prosperous as the capital. The city walls were even somewhat weathered and mottled. But the local customs were simple and honest. The commoners' faces bore a look of resilience. The fisherman rowing the boat smiled heartily while he worked. Lingnan is often raided by foreign enemies and sea pirates. Life is very bitter here. Looking at your clothes, miss, you must be from a wealthy family. And such a delicate lady at that. Why would you come to this remote place all alone? I stood at the bow, letting the river breeze blow through my white skirts. I said nothing. Only looking at the rolling mountains in the distance with a smile. My parents guarded this place for their whole lives, shedding their last drop of blood here. I also want to do what I can to make the place my parents protected with their lives a little bit better. After arriving in Lingnan, I used some of the silver I had with me to buy an abandoned manor. I opened a private school here, teaching the children of poor families to read and write for free. With the remaining money, I founded an Angie Hall nearby, specifically to take in those who were orphaned. Due to the chaos of war and pirate raids, I taught them to read. I taught them arithmetic, and even hired retired veterans to teach them some physical fitness and martial arts. They were no longer wandering the streets here. They ate well and were dressed warmly. They would not be like I was when I first entered the capital, bullied by others with no place to seek justice. Here, they could become strong themselves. Looking at the children's innocent, smiling faces, I gradually began to emerge from the naive love and hatred of my previous life. I am not an appendage of Jiang Wangzhou. I am Song Jishue. The days passed quickly like flowing water. On this day, the sky suddenly changed, and it began to rain heavily. I had just finished teaching the last lesson in the school, and told the children to stay inside to avoid the rain. I looked at the downpour like a screen under the eaves, and let out a sigh. I prepared to run back to Angie Hall nearby to grab an umbrella. Just as I stepped over the threshold of the school, the rain overhead was suddenly blocked. An oil paper umbrella painted with ink bamboo was held steadily over my head. That once incredibly familiar, cold and sharp fragrance with a hint of bitter medicine instantly swirled around my nose. It felt as if a long lifetime had passed. You are still just like before, always forgetting to bring an umbrella on rainy days. Back then at the academy, you'd always wait expectantly for me to fetch you. But you just gave your heart's blood. Your health hasn't fully recovered yet. Can't you take better care of yourself? A hoarse and weary voice, yet one filled with bone-deep longing, rang out from above. My whole body stiffened, and I looked up in disbelief. It was Jiang Wangzhou. Rainwater dripped from the corners of his clothes. His whole person looked as if he had just crawled out of the mud. For a moment, I thought I was hallucinating due to exhaustion. I thought I was dreaming, for Jiang Wangzhou's appearance had changed drastically. He was no longer the one in the capital who was always aloof. The spotless, brightly dressed young man on a spirited horse. His gaze was no longer as bright and arrogant as before, but was instead filled with bloodshot veins and deep fatigue. He had lost so much weight. His black silk robe, which originally fit him perfectly, now hung loosely on his frame. There was even dark stubble on his chin. His hand holding the umbrella was trembling slightly. His Adam's apple bobbed violently. His voice stuck in his throat, so hoarse he could barely speak. Song Jishue, I finally found you. I stared at him blankly, tightly clenching my fingernails under my sleeves. The pain of them digging into my flesh helped me suppress the surging waves in my heart. How could Jiang Wangzhou have come specifically to find me? It must be for some other reason. You came to find me because the Marquis and his wife miss me? I can write a letter back to let them know I am safe. I took half a step back, increasing the distance between us. Jiang Wangzhou watched my distant movements, and his heart felt a sudden sharp pang of pain, followed by immense heartache. He stared fixedly into my eyes, as if afraid that if he blinked, I would disappear again. His eyes were bloodshot. He subconsciously reached out his hand, wanting to pat my head like he did when we were children. It's me. I've been searching for you like a madman. I want you to come home. I widened my eyes. My mind went blank. My heart skipped a beat. Yet I still stubbornly asked. You came to find me. But what about Miss Gu? At the mention of Gu Wanhe, a flash of disgust and remorse crossed Jiang Wangzhou's eyes. The thing he regretted most in this life was never letting the girl he loved know his true feelings earlier. I never liked Gu Wanhe. Jiang Wangzhou explained urgently, his voice carrying a desperate honesty. Song Jishue, you wrote someone else's name on that imperial decree. You don't want me anymore. In order not to marry her, I could only go to the palace to defy the decree. The emperor was furious, and I endured 30 strikes of the military cane for it. I took a sharp breath. 30 military strikes, that was enough to kill a man halfway. Jiang Wangzhou gave a bitter smile, but a paranoid light flickered in his eyes. I lay in the Marquis' manor for a month. The wounds festered repeatedly before I could barely stand. As soon as I could stand, I immediately came to find you without a moment's rest. Do you know? His voice trembled, filled with the fear of a survivor. The day you left, someone said your carriage had fallen off a cliff. I had never felt that sense of loss, as if my very internal organs were being hollowed out. Looking at that cliff, I even had the urge to jump down and be with you. At that moment, I realized exactly how important you are to me. I was a bastard. I never had the courage to see my own heart clearly. I childishly rebelled against my parents. Yet I used the sharpest knife to wound the person who loved me most. I have already uncovered the truth. I know that what happened that day was a misunderstanding. I have also sent Guwanha to the death row prison. She will never come out again. He stared fixedly at me, his eyes moist. His tone humble to the point of dust. Nearly begging, Jishue, come back with me. After we marry, my life will be yours, alright? As he spoke, he reached out the hand that had once been injured for me, wanting to reach through the rain to hold me tightly. I was dazed for a moment. My heart felt as if it were being squeezed by a giant hand. So painful I could hardly breathe. I never thought there would be a day when I would hear Jiang Wangzhou tell me that I was very important in his heart. To see him not even value his own life for me. But I didn't dare to gamble anymore. In my previous life, I spent a lifetime compromising, and even lost my life. Yet I couldn't trade it for Jiang Wangzhou's love. All I got was his sentence, if I had never met you. How much better would it have been? In this life, facing his late-arriving affection, I only felt afraid. My pale lips moved, and I gave a nearly bitter smile. Gently, but with absolute determination, I dodged his hand. Brother Wangzhou. But I don't want to marry you anymore. Jiang Wangzhou's hand froze in midair, as if he had been struck by lightning. He looked at me in disbelief. I followed you since I was small. You protected me, stood up for me, and even guarded me with your life. I mistook that dependency for your love for me. That's why I fell for you so uncontrollably. I shamelessly pestered you and schemed against you, but I never asked you. Did you actually want me? I took a deep breath, letting out both the grievances and the resolution of 2 lifetimes. All of this was my fault. You have rushed here now covered in the dust of travel. But perhaps you still haven't seen your feelings for me clearly. Your actions might just be because you learned the truth about Guwanha and feel you have wronged me. You feel guilty towards me. Or perhaps you feel that since the Marquis and his wife like me, I am the most suitable person to be your obedient consort. It's not guilt. Jiang Wangzhou interrupted urgently. My tears fell, mingling with the rainwater. But I don't need this guilt anymore. I cut him off, my eyes clear and resolute. Brother Wangzhou, the world here in Lingnan is very vast. I live very well and very freely here. You don't need to come looking for me anymore. Go back and be your proud heir of the Marquis of Yongning. Having said that, I hardened my heart and pushed aside the umbrella Jiang Wangzhou was holding, running headlong into the pouring rain without looking back. I didn't dare to look back. I was afraid that if I saw his hurt, desperate eyes one more time, I wouldn't be able to stop myself from throwing myself into his arms and crying out loud. But in this life, I cannot repeat the mistakes of the past. I also cannot selfishly tie him to my side anymore. After that, Jiang Wangzhou indeed did not appear before me again, to force me to leave with him, but he also didn't leave Lingnan. He was like an invisible, guardian deity, silently taking root in the periphery of my life. At the entrance of the school and Anji Hall, things I used to love most in the capital would appear from time to time. Sometimes it was the Jiangnan pastries that the Marquis cook was best at, carefully packed in a warm stone box. Sometimes it was the wood carvings he made for me. When I pestered him as a child, little birds, puzzles, and other exquisite little toys. Even the leaking roof of Anji Hall would be fixed before I even had the chance to find a craftsman. By the next morning, it would be repaired perfectly. I never expected that every little detail about me would actually be remembered so clearly by Wangzhou. It was as if he was using this most clumsy and silent method to piece things back together bit by bit, wanting to find back the Song Jishue, who once had eyes only for him. A year later, the situation in Lingnan became increasingly tense. This day, I was seeing off several outstanding students from the school at the pier, preparing for them to take a boat to the capital for the imperial exams. At the pier outside the city, the river surface was originally calm. Suddenly, an uproar broke out all around without warning. The shrill sound of gongs pierced the sky. The pirates were here. Foreign enemies were attacking. Countless masked men, in black, wielding gleaming scimitars, emerged like water spirits, silently from the river. They cut down anyone they saw. In an instant, fresh blood dyed the river water red. Innocent commoners screamed in terror and fled in all directions. The pier instantly became a living hell. I had long heard that Lingnan was plagued by foreign incursions. When I founded Anji Hall, I had anticipated such a situation. In the face of emergency, I did not panic. I protected the several trembling students behind me, pushing them onto a cargo ship that had just unmoored. Quick, go. Get down. Don't look up. I pushed the students' boat hard toward the middle of the river. Only when their boat slowly drifted away from the shore did I turn around to try and escape the chaos. However, the moment I turned, a fierce-looking pirate had already locked his sights on me. He sneered as he raised the blood-dripping steel blade in his hand, slashing it down ruthlessly toward my chest. There was no way to dodge it. The cold light reflected from the blade stung my eyes. I thought, in this life, I had saved Guwanha, dealt with the matters at hand, and raised so many children here. I truly had nothing left to regret. At least, like my parents, I would die on this land where they once gave their sweat and blood. It was a worthy death. I closed my eyes and waited calmly for death, but the expected pain did not arrive. Instead, there was the dull sound of a blade entering flesh. That blood-stained sharp sword, an inch before it could pierce my chest, was grabbed firmly by a pair of warm, large hands. He had caught the blade with his bare hands. The tall young man stood like an unshakable mountain, once again using his own flesh and blood, using his life to shield me. It was Jiang Wangzhou. His body, which hadn't healed from the 30 strikes and the long journey, now exploded with an incredible strength. Those hands of his, which previously couldn't even hold a soup bowl steadily, now trembled. Yet they gripped the sharp blade with a death grip. He allowed the edge to cut into his palms, deep enough to see the bone. The warm blood spraying from his hands splattered across his handsome, cold features. He kicked the pirate away, snatched the blade, and killed him with a single stroke. Immediately after, a clean white cloth gently covered my eyes, blocking out the blood and slaughter all around. "Don't look," he whispered into my ear. After a short while, following the sounds of clashing swords and combat, Jiang Wangzhou's hidden guards resolved the surrounding crisis. I was swept up by him and pulled onto a horse. The horse neighed and galloped away from the bloody pier. Once we reached the safety of a deep forest, the horse stopped. Jiang Wangzhou let out a long breath scented with blood. A heavy breath. His tall frame seemed to instantly lose all strength. Leaning heavily against my shoulder, the tension in his body finally gave way. "Song Jishue." He gasped for air, his voice so hoarse it was heartbreaking. "I almost lost you again." I felt the clothes on my shoulder being soaked by something hot. He paused. The air of the Marquis of Yongning, who once never flinched before 1,000 troops, now spoke with a voice as trembling as a helpless child. I was truly terrified. He had once climbed a 10,000-foot cliff to pick a snow lotus, faced avalanches in the coldest regions, and even been trapped behind enemy lines with his life hanging by a thread, yet he had never known such fear. Now, facing the moment he might have lost me, even the word terrified felt so light yet heavy. Feeling the blood from his hands continually dripping onto the back of my hand, the white cloth over my eyes had long been soaked by my salty tears. I tore off the blindfold, crying so hard I could barely breathe. I turned around and hugged him tightly. "Why are you so foolish? The tendons in your hand already had old injuries. To save me, is it really worth risking your life over and over again? Is it truly worth it?" Jiang Wangzhou weakly curled the corner of his mouth. Before he could speak, his eyes closed, and he fainted away from the pain. In a state of frantic desperation, I took Jiang Wangzhou to a nearby clinic. The wounds on his hands were deep enough to see bone. Combined with the forced use of internal energy and excessive blood loss, he developed a persistent high fever. During those few days, Jiang Wangzhou seemed to be trapped in an extremely terrible dream. He lay lifelessly on the clinic bed, his face as pale as paper. His body wouldn't stop shaking from the fever, even in his unconscious state. His hands gripped the edge of the blanket tightly, as if it were the last vine on the edge of a cliff. "Jishue, don't jump." His teeth were clenched, his forehead was covered in cold sweat, and he murmured in pain, "The cliff is too cold. Don't leave me alone in the capital." My heart twisted with every word I heard. I could only hold him tightly, holding that hand wrapped in thick gauze, whispering softly in his ear over and over again, "I'm here, brother Wangzhou. I haven't left, I'm right here." The medicine from the clinic was extremely bitter. When his mind was clouded by the high fever, he acted like a stubborn child, refusing to open his mouth. I had no other choice but to take the bitter medicine into my own mouth and feed it to him mouth to mouth, sip by sip. I had no appetite, and my tears fell onto his cheeks. After 3 whole days and nights, his fever finally broke. His face gradually regained a hint of color, and his breathing became steady. I sat by the edge of the bed, looking at his gaunt, yet still handsome face. The grievances, heartache, and love from 2 lifetimes intertwined together. My tears broke through again, until a pair of hands, though wrapped in gauze, but still warm and broad, gently brushed the corners of my eyes, clumsily wiping away my tears. "Silly girl, why are you crying?" I looked up sharply, and met Jiang Wangzhou's deep, clear eyes, which were filled with deep affection. He gazed at me, speaking weakly but with absolute seriousness. "You asked me if it was worth giving up my life for you. Do you remember? In our previous life, when you were in that great fire, as you died in my arms, before you left, you asked me a question." My whole body shook as I looked at him in disbelief. Jiang Wangzhou's eyes reddened, and he spoke every word with weight. "That question. I want to answer it for you again now. Song Jishue, I never regret saving you. If it were anyone else, I would never, over and over again, give up my own life without a second thought. But precisely because it is you, because that person is Song Jishue, losing my life means nothing. Without you, living in this world like a walking corpse would be 10,000 times more terrifying than death." In that moment, the mistakes of 2 lifetimes, the sorrow and the wasted years, were all completely resolved by this late confession. Jishue, I only then realized that Jiang Wangzhou never lacked love for me. He was just awkward by nature. Accustomed to burying this love deep in his heart. Using a prickly shell to confront everything. Yet only wounding the person he loved most. My hands trembled violently. My face covered in tears. I hugged him tightly. Jiang Wangzhou. You are a bastard. He buried his head deep into the crook of my neck, like a devotee who had found what was lost. I am a bastard. So, won't you give me a lifetime to atone for my sins? After Jiang Wangzhou recovered from his injuries, I entrusted Anji Hall to the reliable local gentry, and set off on the road back to the capital with him. On the day we returned, snow was falling all across the sky. The crimson gates of the Marquis of Yoning's manor were wide open. The old Marquis and his wife had long been waiting in the snow. When they saw us stepping down from the carriage hand in hand, the usually majestic and strict old Marquis actually had reddened eyes. He turned his back to wipe away his tears. The lady was even more overcome with joy, rushing forward to pull me into a tight embrace. Sobbing, she repeated, "It's good that you're back. My Nan. It's good that you're back." Jiang Wangzhou watched from the side, took a step forward, lifted his robes, and knelt heavily in the snow, performing 3 kowtows to his parents. He was no longer that rebellious youth who constantly clashed with his parents. In his eyes was an added sense of stability and gratitude after experiencing life and death. In the 11th month of that year, with a 10-mile-long bridal procession, Jiang Wangzhou nearly emptied half of the warehouses of the Marquis of Yoning's manor, painting the entire capital in a festive shade of red. On our wedding night, as red candles flickered, he lifted my bridal veil and placed a black iron token, representing his entire fortune and military power, into the palm of my hand. From this day forward, Jiang Wangzhou's life and everything he owns will be under your control. Time flew by. During the Lantern Festival in the 3rd year of our marriage, the streets and alleys of the capital were filled with lanterns of all shapes and sizes. Jiang Wangzhou held my hand, squeezing through the bustling crowd to watch the revolving lanterns. We went to the most prosperous Wanyue tower in the capital. In a private booth on the 2nd floor, we ordered a table of steaming food, but just then, an accident occurred. Downstairs, a lantern from somewhere accidentally toppled over, igniting the stack of lanterns. Fueled by the winter night wind, the oil fire surged upward like a wild beast in an instant. Fire! Run for your lives! Heart-wrenching screams came from downstairs. Thick smoke billowed, and fire snakes soon reached our private booth. The flames turned the night sky blood red, and the scorching heat seared our skin. This scene felt like a repeat of my past life's nightmare. In my previous life, it was such a sudden fire. To push me out of the flames, Jiang Wangzhou was struck by a burning beam, and died right in front of me. At that moment, a mass of fear, like a cold hand, gripped my heart. My legs went weak, and I almost collapsed to the ground. Jishue, don't be afraid. Jiang Wangzhou pulled me into his protective embrace, wrapping me tightly in a wet cloak. Just as we were about to rush toward the stairs, there was a crack from above, an ear-piercing sound of snapping wood. A massive, blazing roof beam crashed straight down toward us. I let out a shrill scream, and tears instantly filled my eyes. Was the fatal fate truly inescapable? But this time, Jiang Wangzhou did not simply push me away, like he had in the previous life. With sharp eyes, he pulled me into a safe corner beside him. At the same time, he took a deep breath. That right hand, once severely injured, had been retrained over countless days and nights, with almost masochistic effort. To regain its powerful inner strength, he suddenly gathered his energy and struck upward. With a loud bang, a fierce and unparalleled palm wind forcibly struck the heavy, charred beam, knocking it 3 feet away. It crashed heavily onto the empty space beside us, smashing the tables and chairs. Protecting me, he stepped over the charred ruins, and we rushed out of the fire unscathed. Standing on the cold street in the winter night, watching the Wanyue Tower collapse behind us, I was trembling all over. Jiang Wangzhou held me tightly, his broad palm stroking my back repeatedly to soothe me. It's okay, Jishue. Look, I'm still here. We are both safe. I sobbed uncontrollably in his arms. At that moment, I finally understood that the fatal calamity of my past life had been completely shattered at the moment. We chose each other and stood side by side. In this lifetime, the days passed peacefully and happily. Soon, it was Jiang Wangzhou's 30th birthday. Although we had already survived the fire together, the shadow of my previous life was so deep that I had been restless since early morning. I stayed by his side constantly. I even tested his tea for poison with a silver needle, leaving Jiang Wangzhou between laughter and tears, until night fell, and the sky was filled with stars. Jiang Wangzhou led me to the Zhaixing Tower, the highest point of the manor. The night breeze was slightly cool. He stood before me, safe and sound, with a gentle gaze. He took out a slightly rough, yet perfectly polished peachwood hairpin from his sleeve, and gently tucked it into my hair. It was something he had carved himself, stroke by stroke, using his once-injured right hand in secret. He held my hand with absolute firmness. our fingers tightly intertwined, as we stood side by side at the railing. A bright silver line suddenly streaked across the sky. Then came 10. And then hundreds, a once-in-a-century meteor shower. Like a magnificent dance of light and shadow, it cascaded across the capital's night sky. I widened my eyes in wonder at the meteors. Under the starlit sky, Jiang Wangzhou leaned down and kissed my forehead deeply. Jishue, I am so lucky to have met you again in this life. The rumors were right. Having seen this meteor shower together, we are destined to be together for 3 lifetimes. Don't even think about leaving me again.